All right. So I just wanted to talk about your career for a start, the beginning of your career for a
Let's talk
starter.
about it. Yeah.
Where you came from and why you decided to get into stand up.
Yeah. Well, I can start. I mean, to give you a shoot. I come from a country town in Queensland called Wandai, which means wild dog. I always find your barking ironic because it's pretty well the sound of my childhood. And it really is like that. It's a fairly, it's in Western Queensland, in Joe Bjelke-Petersen's electorate near Kingaroy.
Really?
Right near, I grew up probably, it's very close to Cherbourg, Indigenous, was one of those reserves when people were rounded up and taken off country, and people of many, many different kind of dialects and languages and story were all forced into living a mission life. The mission was very close to the town I went to school in. So I grew up in a place which is as close probably to growing up in the deep south of America when it comes to politics and how people think, and particularly the relationship between First Nation people and white people. There was always this huge sense where I grew up that um, that of white supremacy, of that Indigenous people were other. They were not afforded the same respect or humanity that people in the white community, even the lowest of the low in the white community, was seen better than a black fella, except on Sunday when they played football. And that's when, weirdly, in that one occasional football, you would see young Indigenous men completely fucking annihilate white people. And it was this kind of moment um, of weird reconciliation on the football field. Even though there was incredible racism, there was a moment where those black fellas had absolute respect because you could see they were superior athletes so much more than the other guys. So that was really big. I was very lucky that I grew up in a family. My grandfather was a communist. My mother had grown up with those kind of, with more equitable belief systems around social justice. I was, they were a Labor Party voting family. We were in an area where nobody, like I was told from when I was really small, like never, if anyone asks, you cannot say who we vote for. So I think 3 people voted Labor. I remember when Whitlam got in, because I was a tiny kid. I was about 5 or something, because they were like my mother and the other 2 Whitlam voters who were gay, but no one knew, all came over to our house to have a party. Part of that was I living there. My dad was he was a great footballer and a really open-minded person. So we ended up at that time with from the age of 2, Shirley, who's 1 year younger than me. She started living with us part-time and lived with us until she was 14 or 15 when she left and ended up starting her own family quite young. She's an Indigenous girl. So I had a very first-hand experience of growing up in a very racist area with a fairly strong
Very
connection.
open-minded, a very open.
Yeah, I was really lucky. And it made me, I got an experience for what it was like to stand on the outside. You know what I mean? Like as the other. And to see I wasn't necessarily, but I questioned the way everybody believed what they thought. It felt wrong, and it felt I didn't. It wasn't like I wanted to be. I lived in a violent alcohol. My dad was a great man, dead at 30, violent alcoholic, traumatized from his past. And so I lived a fairly average, like it was housing commission house with holes in it everywhere, police turning up. My dad tried to shoot him one time. Like he was wild. But underneath that mad wildness, he was actually a pretty decent human being with his values. He just never got to live past 30. So I don't know what I thought. I remember actually thinking, I was a bit of a Woody Allen-ish child. I thought about death a lot because I was very serious, exposed to violence and horror from a very young age. And I remember thinking, if there's such a thing as a God, this has to stop. And I worked out the only way I could have a life was that my father had to die. And I really loved him, but I pretty well willed him to death in that sense. But yeah.
Thank you. Can I just stop for 1 second? There's a weird clicking noise in here. Do you know what that is? Sorry.
That's all right.
It's going good. I love it.
You're a bit. I can't. You're completely quiet.
Sorry, the
now.
what?
I can't hear you. That's better. There's something wrong with those headphones, I reckon.
I missed that. Sorry.
What? That's okay. Now I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
That's better. That's better. Yeah. Can you hear me? I can hear you very well. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds much better.
Good. Yes.
There was a weird clicking thing going on there. Okay, they're no good. Okay. There's still a clicking thing though.
I don't know where it's just the Zoom connection. It's
Just talk for a second, Mandy. Hello.
Yeah, sure.
Hello.
Always.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Are we coming in
clearly, but there was some clicking thing going on before this. Now it seems to have gone, but I don't know what it is. It's not your
weird thing. It's all right.
It's not your earrings.
No, my earrings are leather, so they don't click at all.
I'm still getting a clicking sound.
I think it's just the
as long as it's not going on our thing, I can handle it. Okay, let's move on then. Okay, so what I was going to say was whatever it was so growing up in that environment. Are we still recording? So growing up in that environment, you felt a bit of an outsider in your community, but also you grew up in a bit of a broad-minded household, although it was fairly poor and having a dad an alcoholic, etc. It was still fairly broad-minded politically, etc. So there was no racism in your house, and you didn't grow up somebody saying there's bloody Aboriginal people, whatever, things like that. So you got a sense of, but you also got a sense of how our culture was. Whatever.
I got a sense of being outraged from as a pretty small kid. I've always had a pretty strong sense of not just outrage of I was always the kid that stood up for everyone else. Like I used to get myself in a lot of trouble. I couldn't bear seeing injustice. Like it hurt. Like I'd get really upset. And one of the things they did on the school bus, which was because I went to a Catholic school, is they used to go out to pick up the kids. Like half the kids in my class were Indigenous. So I'd show and tell, we'd have a goanna, brought in, and we'd all have a bit of an eat. Quite delicious, actually. So, kids actually aren't quite naturally, all those terrible values that come from their parents. Kids can actually forget all that and actually learn to meet people who they are and learn really interesting things. So the nuns used to put me because I was always a really good girl and a high achieving kid, and so I was put on the bus because they went to a special trip out to Cherbourg to pick up the kids that went to that school. And, so we'd go pick up 40 or 50 kids, and they're wild, like little kids. They'd go, the bus trip was nuts. And so the bus driver, who was like the most racist, old, he could have been a fucking card-carrying Ku Klux Klan. Like he could see his hatred of these kids, little fun, and you drive out to the reserve then, and this was poverty, the community back then, they had very few resources, and so no empathy from this dude. And even as a kid, I could tell. And my job, but the nuns had me on a bus, I was only about 10, was that I had to keep the kids under control so that he'd drive the bus, otherwise he refused to drive them. So one day, there's a little girl, Daisy, she was so cute, she was like 5, she was late for the bus, and we start pulling out, and she's running behind the bus, going, mister, and he keeps driving. And I'm at the front, his name was Mr. Pugh. I'm going, Mr. Pugh, Daisy's here. Daisy, stop the bus. And he said nothing. He just went, and just kept driving. And as we drove off, there's a little girl in the background, this tiny little girl, just sobbing. And I just was going, I didn't swear at him because I didn't swear then. And I was bursting into tears, and I went, look what you've done. How can you, like I went nuts on the bus. And then I think the nuns realized I was so upset, so angry at him, and so powerless. And I was the white girl. I mean, that that racism wasn't affecting me. All I felt was the pain of seeing a little kid, and these other kids are so used to it happening that they barely bat an eyelid, because that was what happened. And that's where I grew up. Like that, it was strong. So they put the nun on after that. I was relieved of my duties of having to be the kind of the bus behavior moderator. But that feeling never leaves you, of that sense that if you've got a voice, you should use it, you should raise it, you should say something. And I think weirdly comedy became that. It became, without being, you're not preaching stuff, but you feel like you're saying stuff that you don't hear, or it hasn't been said widely enough.
Absolutely. And that's my experience too, because I grew up with a sense of outrage, having a father who was a Holocaust survivor. So it's very similar in many ways, and I at school we were taunted, dirty Jews, all this sort of stuff at a public school, which was predominantly Jewish students, but they always got a hard time. So I always grew up with that. I was growing up as well with a sense of outrage.
Yeah.
So, and that pushed me to be, for the same reasons, pushed me to be a spokesperson and a radical, etc.
I'd be interested to see how many comedians have come in some way out of trauma, where they're
not George Smilovich, not George Smilovich.
Maybe not, but I think there is a sense that a lot of times we are trauma informed, because there's something, whether in your background, like with your father who's a Holocaust survivor, or whether I've lived in a very full-on poor community with lots of racism, with a very full-on alcoholic father who was very, like, almost in making sense of it. I think sometimes it's almost like I'm not saying comedy is therapy. It's almost like you go to comedy to make sense of the world, because it just didn't make sense. I couldn't, and the fact that people just thought this, and you go, I've already seen that's fucking wrong. The way you think, how can you not think another way? So, it was a sort of a subversive medium to shake people up a bit.
That's right. Well, that's a catalyst anyway. It's definitely a catalyst. And I felt, but I hated discipline, from the word go. I just hated, always.
I can imagine you would hate discipline.
Just always hated.
Did you get in trouble a lot?
Got in trouble all the time in school. I would do impressions of the teachers, whatever the teacher. If the teacher was a fascist, and they mostly were at my school, they were all fucked in the head and fascists. I'd take the piss out of them, and they would react, obviously. So I'd be standing outside picking up papers all afternoon, that sort of thing, So, I was always in trouble at school and university, always in trouble. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the trouble, as you know.
How weird is the discipline at the moment? This is slightly off topic, but I was hearing on the news today. Have you heard it in Bali? Because of all the white tourists that are still over there that won't wear a mask, and the police have, because they're not paying their $5 or $10 fines. So now they're making them drop on the street and do 20 push-ups.
the Aussies, yeah, I'm sure they'd love that. Well, but
get the Aussies to do 20. It's a bit like picking up paper.
But it's the same reaction as these people have towards mask. There are a lot of people who won't wear a mask in Australia, which is completely insane.
Stupid.
It's as if it's a big deal to put that thing around 2 ears, as if it's a huge problem.
Yeah, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm never going to wear a fucking get fucked. Fucking Scott Morrison get fucked.
Whatever it is, I mean, it's a prevalent attitude. But I think that's stupid. But discipline is that I've never enjoyed discipline. I've never had. That's why I don't have an agent. I think, or whatever.
The discipline. I can imagine how it is discipline inside. See, I was actually a very good girl. I never got in trouble. Very occasionally. I was
I was never incarcerated, but I did get a lot of trouble with mostly with autocratic teachers and autocratic, lecturers at university. But I wasn't, I was never done for anything, DUI or whatever, nothing, not even.
No.
But this job, the thing about this job,
take it when you challenge them.
That's right. But this job, what I love about this job is the lack of limitations. The ability to do anything you want and upset people or whatever it is, to push the boundaries. And I mean, you know, although you were a good girl, I mean, you do provoke the audience. I've noticed, you know,
Oh
over
yeah,
years, you love to provoke the audience too.
I've
So
become less good as I get older. Actually, Sandy, I think as I get older, I become less concerned about being liked, and I become less concerned about sticking to the social mores that you should, particularly as a woman. You know, I still get that thing that people come and say, you know, that ladies, people sometimes you get called vulgar. I find vulgar a vulgar word. It to me, it is a word of repression. Like the language that is used to describe um, your, if you swear or how you speak, to me is so much more offensive because it's has this inherent sense of sexual, social, and it's repressive language. It's repression. It's language that's meant to shut you down and shame you. It's shaming language.
well,
And
well, it's also the easiest thing to take umbrage
totally.
towards. It's the easiest thing. They say to me, "Yeah, you still saying fuck in your show?" You know, or my mother used to say to me, "Why do you have to say cocksucker?" You know, that was the only impression she had. It's the only thing she could
Fixated
come
on
to.
it.
She'd say, why do you say cocksucker? You know, like as if she's just watched a 2-hour show, and that's the only thing she's come away with. Or my brother's friends, sometimes I'll say to me, why do you have to swear in your show? What do you say? What do you swear? And it's as if, I mean, the content of the show that's so minimal. It's like saying,
Yeah,
Billy Birmingham. What about Billy Birmingham?
I know it is.
You
It is. Swearing is interesting because I mean you would have read those studies that, you know, I love all those studies that come out that say, you know, apparently people who swear are smart across the board. It was one of my favorite studies I've ever read
I've
that
seen
says,
that
oh,
one.
we're
I've
actually
seen it.
smarter.
Yeah.
Which you go like, well, that completely supports my internal bias. Um, but what most people don't understand in comedy is that you never swear. Like, you're not 5 or 12. You're not getting up and going cocksucker or fuck because it's swearing and it's naughty. You're doing it because it's part of our parochial language. It's something that we understand. And comedy's it's as close as to caricature as you can get. It's like whipping out a cartoon in the paper. Like you have to you have to actually give people the emotive reason of what you're doing. You have to put them straight in it. And words like fuck is, if you're doing an act out of what you're trying to say and show people what you mean, fuck just works every time. You can be depressed, you can be angry, you can be. So people aren't laughing at the word, they're laughing at the joke and the intention on the word, because it's such a great, it's the most incredible conductor of emotion. So when you're swearing, you know, always that, you know, very rarely do people laugh just because you're swearing. They're laughing for something else. It might make them uncomfortable if they're uptight and they don't understand that because they're
But,
idiots.
but as you say, I mean, this culture, you know, Australian culture, the Australian vernacular
Mm.
without fuck and cunt is just,
Yeah, it's nothing.
it's useless. But
Yeah.
it's great. I love that word cunt, and I love saying fuck on. I love it because it's part, but you know, it's part of the vernacular. I hardly ever swear as a human being,
No,
unless
you
somebody's
hardly
standing
ever
on my
do
foot.
swear.
But not at all. But when I no, well, I don't really. You know, when I'm just myself, as I'm not. But on stage, it's
It
part of
happens.
it's a cultural thing anyway. That's what it is.
And it's also part of the energy of what you're doing. And there's always this inherent thing that if when people say that, they mean, if you didn't, that do you have to swear? Like, are you just doing it because you're not very good? Are you just getting laughs because you're swearing? You go, you think I built an entire career on swearing. Anyone can get on stage and swear. I've seen drunk people at karaoke. They're not getting booked anywhere else.
Absolutely, but it's such a petty thing to notice and to make a big deal
Petty.
out of it. That's
But
because
it still gets pulled up though. It still gets, you know, not all the time. It'll get pulled up here and there, but someone will ask that every couple of weeks when someone speaks to you about it, they'll ask that sort of, you know, really conservative thing about that, you know.
yeah,
And I
I
went,
get it all. I get it all the time from everyone. But it's from the beginning of my career, which is now 40 years. You know, constantly. Well, you need to swear. I mean, it's just shock value or whatever it is, or some sort of stupid reason. Anyway,
context is always
so,
got, yeah.
huh? Huh?
Yeah, keep
So,
going.
so no, just moving on. So you came from that town and you got into stand up. What age were you when you got into stand up?
17.
17. So you've been doing like
it was
that's
pretty
30
young.
years, 30 years now, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm 53 today. So it's
Okay, so
actually
36 years.
what's that? 36 years. So I really only got into it because I like a lot of, I went to university, studying journalism and a bit of everything else, psychology and drama and literature and literary theory and sociology and blah, 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 which was an absolutely fabulous thing to study as a comedian because I developed a really great interest in the world, not great at anything in particular, but you hone your critical thinking. And I always say, as they're killing off arts degrees now, all those people that are serious about being stand-up comedians, don't do a fucking degree in stand-up comedy, do an arts degree and actually go read some philosophy, read some psychology, read some sociology, investigate some politics, read some literature. You'll be a much better comic because, that is how, like, I was looking at they're running that degree because I teach comedy for 6 weeks, but that's just the form. I wouldn't run it for a year because if I ran it for a year, I wouldn't even be doing comedy. Anyway, that's how I started because I was at uni. And
Yes. So
there's
what was
always
your where was your first where was your first
I did it
show?
at Queensland Uni. There was a cement box theatre, and I was in a feminist theatre troupe, a feminist theatre show, I think. And I did like a 5-minute comedy bit in it on my own, and it was just on my, it was part of the show. And someone went, "That was really funny. Will you?" Because it brought the house down. Such a first feminist piece. It was on my first period. I'm so embarrassed by it. But I was 17. It was, it was the 80s. It was second wave feminist. I was right in there. And it was pretty funny. And I got booked straight away. I never worked for free. I got paid from the minute that was my only free gig. And from that moment on, I got paid. Working in Brisbane, there was no other women comics. And so I was writing funny monologues and I think we were all trying to find the form then. I think people know what comedy is, but then I felt like in the mid 80s, there weren't a lot of role models about what this looked like on any stretch. I mean, what you were doing, what other comics were out there doing, were forging a way with what Australian comedy was going to look and sound like, because you're going, is it doing wordplay? Is it me doing this? Is it, it was a really different time. And
Absolutely, but we were influenced. I know I was influenced by Steve Martin, by what was going on in
the US
at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles or whatever. We were very
I was
influenced by
very.
that. But you're right. We were forging a path
We tried to work it out.
of individuality, I suppose. Yeah, and
whoever
Aussie
influenced you. So I loved Whoopi Goldberg. She had this one woman show where she did 5 characters, and she's a really great character comic.
Yeah, that's where Steven Spielberg discovered her. That's where he saw her.
Yeah, that amazing show. And I thought she was so amazing. And I thought, well, I'm just going to do character comedy. And I'm shit at it. And I look back, it was so bad. But it's like, it took years to work that out. But that's how I started out. I was always, I tended to write comedic monologues that I learnt and I'd recite. I wasn't going off. I did end up actually doing the support act for Whoopi Goldberg when I was in Canberra. That was
really?
kind of one of those moments. Yeah, that was kind of fun when she was on a tour. Because I was me and this other girlfriend of mine, and it was when they still had that thing. I was only like 21 or so then, and I was still pretty shit. Like I was naturally funny, but I think I would have been a bit painful to watch quite a bit. Anyway, I knew in Australia then they had that kind of law that, well, it was a law, but it was when you had an international act, you had to have an Australian support act. So when I was living in Canberra at the time, and when Whoopi Goldberg was coming, I said to my friend who was also a performer, I went, they're going to have to put an Australian comic on with her. There's no one in Canberra. If we get to the agent's office first, we'll get it. So we just turned up there and hassled this dude, the promoter, and he just said, all right, but this is her rules, right? We weren't allowed on stage. We weren't allowed to speak, right? Or do we could do, but okay. So we had to dress up. We dressed up like homeless women, and we had to do mime in the auditorium. Like really, we weren't allowed to talk. but we got to do the support act. So it was like, one of the most impressive things on my probably my CV to this day. That
What
and
you mean
supporting
you didn't go on stage? You weren't actually
wasn't
standing
allowed.
on.
They would not. That was her rule. She
Why
wasn't
was that?
allowed on
Because she was competitive? Was that the problem, or
They don't want anyone else on stage to sully
they
the
didn't
show.
want anybody that was in, that could potentially be better than her? Maybe.
Probably potentially better and potentially change the feeling of the crowd. Or what if you
Right.
were terrible and she had to come on after you? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whatever it was, they just didn't want it. But they had to employ someone. So we pretty well. There was about 5,000 people there, and we just hung in the foyer like homeless women, just harassing people. These really wealthy Canberra people. It was kind of like we didn't care because we got to go backstage and spend an hour with her afterwards.
And how
So
was
we were
that?
like,
How was spending time with her?
great. We loved
Was
it.
it?
Was great. It was when you
Yeah.
meet someone that you really
Yeah, that you admire. Yeah.
enamored of.
Yeah.
And I just sort of sat there as a young girl, and my friend's Maori, so she had the connection at least with Whoopi that she came from a place of a similar place of pushing up against stereotypes. I was just this stupid white chick sitting there going, can't believe this. It was fun though. I really did. I did love it.
So you were working in Queensland mostly, and that time
Yeah,
there wasn't
mostly.
there wasn't a Fideli, was there? There was nothing like that. So how did you get
No.
your show? How did you get shows?
I used to work at somewhere called the Story Bridge Hotel. And I used to work a lot at poetry and spoken. Remember, poetry and spoken word nights were really big in the 80s.
Yeah,
And that's what all the smart university people did. So I did all the smart university stuff, and then I started hanging out in a group in Brisbane and West End called Street Arts, which was community theatre, and they always had rock and roll circus, and there was a lot of really interesting politicized theatre and stuff happening. I then worked on. I got a 4-person woman. Kind of, comedy group that ran for about 3 years. We used to work at the Livid festivals. We got like quite a big following. So we did kind of stand-up cabaret together, but in that kind of 4 women, it was always a bit of a full-on show. I was always the funniest, which is the problem,
of course,
in the group, because it created like, and it was really hard being in something like that, watching someone fuck up a line, going, fuck, just give me that line. I'll nail it. But it was a really great process, because as a young woman, it was very daunting to be heading out. I mean, when open mic comics come backstage and go, that was such a tough crowd, you must feel like this. I go, what the fuck are you talking about? You're not bleeding. Like the crowds that I started in were violent. It was adversarial. It was like, it's nothing like it is now. Like, and I think that forged the kind of style that I have. And
that's interesting, because that I was talking about that the other day. And I mean, in the 80s, and it was very gladiatorial, just being a stand-up, and the audiences were always aggressive and horrible and chucking stuff, and
How come you're not funny, you stupid cunt? When are you going to get funny?
and all that sort of stuff was just, that was
Yeah,
predominant.
you could not get on. You could not get on and do an observation about a grasshopper, or something like that. You'd be fucking right. You'd be bleeding out of every orifice if you did that. Like, so it was so tough. So I did a lot of those gigs, and I've been followed into car parks. I have been hit in the head with beer cans, and I've been bleeding down the forehead, and watched all the poets coming on after me cancel. It kind of toughens you up. Like, you learn not to take it personally. It's really weird. You'd be able to brush that off, and it's hard sometimes, and I wasn't good. I was still learning, but in this brutalizing environment, absolutely. So working with these other women meant we often worked into feminist audiences, which were very kind of open and to what we were doing. So for me, it was a very narrow arc that I could work to. And for me personally, I went, there's no point just performing to this group that agree with me or like what I say. I have to broaden it out here. I have to take these politics that I have and get it out to those people that don't even know they're laughing at something that means they understand something I've talked about from a different political perspective. So that took a long time. So that's why it was so good to work with other people. That's where it came from. And then I'd go back into stand up.
As you know now, and I've been through the same process, maybe in a little, not as a feminist, but as a fairly provocative entertainer, of just constantly getting into confrontations with everybody. but it does train you to, I mean, train you in all aspects of this business. You know, a lot of people who do it now, as you know, it's the easy. They've had the easy road. You know.
Oh, it's so easy now. Like that's why the thing that people get upset about is they didn't go very well. I didn't get many laughs. Like I don't think I've ever seen audiences like the ones that we had in the 80s. They were unbelievable. Like it was terrifying. I can't even believe I started then because it got a bit better in the 90s, but not that much better. And then by the 2000s, it started to like, it wasn't as terrifying, and you felt,
well, they're almost polite now, though. They're almost polite. People
they
don't,
are.
people don't shout at you. They used to shout at me all the
Oh,
time.
yeah,
You know,
horrible.
what you think you're funny, do you?
All that stuff was just that was the business.
Oh yeah, everyone having a go at you, thinking it was funny they were part of the show. If they started heckling at you, had to prove that you're right. Like the whole thing that you had to prove yourself. Was that real Aussie thing of fucking think you're funny, do you? I'm the funny guy in this fucking room. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Like, fuck, it was such a relief. It's actually, you know, I do enjoy not having to do that, but I do. I know it certainly toughens you up as you're starting. So that's why I worked in a group. So it gave me some relief to work to kind of audiences where that did love me, that did allow me a little bit of space to find my feet when I didn't really know what they were. But then I kept going to solo. I never wanted to be a stand-up comic. I didn't start out wanting to do this. Like I always find it now that so many people want to be stand-ups, you know, because it just happened by accident for me. I just suddenly went, oh fuck, I can do this. I'm actually doing it. I guess this is what I do. I enjoy it a lot.
I think it's that George Smilovich thing. I think it's that when he came into the game, things changed.
It.
But changed it a lot. Yeah. It's a look at me, look at me, look at me. But so then, I mean, as you progressed, you started this, you know, teaching other people to do the job. You know, you have your comedy school, which is still going on, isn't it? You still have your 6-week course.
You know, I just stopped doing it late last year, and I taught over 2,000 people by then.
And the most famous of those was Hannah Gadsby, is that right? The one that became the most famous. I mean, she's done it. She
won an Emmy.
She won an
Pretty
Emmy.
good.
She did incredibly well because of you. And
well, I got it started. She was really good in the beginning. Like she had a natural, you know, that thing that you've got to have a voice. Like you've got to have a worldview, and whether you find someone funny or not, it's almost irrelevant. It's how are they going to add to a narrative of comedy, because you've got to have a really such a strong worldview based on who you are, and it has to be authentic to who you are. And you know,
if anybody says to me, I want to be a stand-up comic, that's the first thing I say. You have to have a belief system that is a unique and individualistic. So I agree with you about Hannah Gadsby. When she was on the Adam Hills, he did some Tonight Show thing, which was probably rubbish. But she was really good on that show. She was really off the cuff, extemporaneous. What I find now is she's about as funny as esophageal cancer stage 4. So that something's happened to her. That whole victim thing. A lot of people.
Maybe she doesn't need to be funny as like that. Like you sometimes go, maybe what we do when we're good at it, because we are making people think in the direction we want to. Maybe we start to go into spoken word. Maybe we start to tell stories and get a laugh, and maybe we go, you know what, this point here, I don't give a shit if you laugh or not. I kind of like that. That once you've got it, you can take it wherever the fuck you want because you've honed it. But most people doing comedy.
Isn't it important though to always be funny though? Isn't that the point of the job?
Question.
Hey.
I think when you're booked, when people are coming to see you for your show, and you're not booked, I think you can do what the fuck you want because they've come to see you. And I kind of love the idea of a comedian going, you're not going to fucking get what you think you're going to get. I'm going to give you this. I kind of like that sometimes. I mean, if you get a job for a ladies' luncheon, a comedy gig, they've booked you. You got to be funny. You know, that's what you do. You got to be able to do both. I just think there's a lot of people that are getting into it now, and a lot of aspirants that come in that don't get that whole thing about how you think. That's why you go home and read. You know, do something, give a shit about something, and then come back. because that's what makes it
well, that's right.
interesting.
You need to be aware, and you need to be
Mm.
well read, and you need to be cultured, and you need to have a point of view. You need to have a broad range of things that you can draw from, particularly if you're going to be fresh, as
Yeah.
fresh as possible, in the moment. But
So many people don't, though.
no,
Like some
well,
people
that's
say,
right.
I
Well,
go
that's
to
right.
this one bloke, I'd go, and so I used to make them go, okay, I was like, bring me something back that you've read or heard, or let me, and he'd go, oh, I don't listen to the news, I don't read newspapers, I don't listen to the, And I went, you don't? I said, so you're going to stand up in front of people and have no idea what their lives are like, what's happened to them. Like, what a profoundly arrogant approach to have.
Stupid, and
Yeah.
to be proud of that is
Proud of it.
mean,
You guys, it's the least you can do is to find.
be
You don't
proud
have
of
to
to be proud of
about
it,
it.
well, to be proud of ignorance. I mean,
Yeah,
then
but
you
at
become
least know it's happening to people.
well.
Yeah, I think
Then
that's
you become
a shitty attitude.
smart as your audience, because
Yeah.
they think ignorance is bliss. A lot of my audiences do, which is a very
Yeah.
unfortunate. So like working in front of fuckwits, but the other night, when those footballers showed up. Just for
Yeah.
instance, I mean that was a great night that night.
It was a really fun
Monday
show.
night.
It was really funny.
No, but both of us were really on our. It was really good because there was a good vibe in the room, and there was a chance to be fresh, a little bit fresh, and whatever. I mean, I was taking the piss out of that whole culture, and the whole yobbo sport, raping thing, which he loved that
Yeah, they
little
found it really
sunburn,
funny.
well, he really enjoyed it, so it was fantastic, whatever it is. But the job is to try, for me anyways, to try and keep that freshness, but you do too. I mean, because you are you're living in Byron, and you're in your Mullumbimby, I mean, and you're sucking up all that stuff from that area, and so that's what you spit out. That's what you spit out, eh?
Yeah, you got to keep it really fresh. And because I'm speaking to my community over and over again, and you got to keep that conversation going. Like I don't, I think if I'd come along, my thing as a comedian is, I know I'm really good at what I do. I never question what I do. And I've had to make it fit here where I live. Even though I work in other places, this is my home. I work in Mullumbimby, Byron Bay, Northern Rivers. This is where I'm well known. And so because my audiences return, I have to keep the conversation flowing. I have to reflect what's happening to them. And then I can't be repeating too much stuff, which makes it hard when you're trying to work something up. But in doing that, and it's funny because I went, years ago, I always went, because, I'm 53 now. And I went, if I was me 20 years ago, I think I'd have no problem getting through into the comedy. I've always been not quite right for whatever reason, comedy industry to get picked up. I'm like kind of, I would be I'm like too old now, and they go, comedy goes, we've already got an old woman. Well, I'm not even that I'm an old woman, but I'm at an age where we're tokenized, and you go, you're not this voice coming through. And that's why I went, well, I'm going to do it my own way. I'm just going to enjoy this career. I'm going to get lots of work. And I've also got a lot of respect of people in the industry and people that come to see me because I've made it here. And I went, I'm not trying to push into anything else out there and in doing that, you have to keep it fresh. And it kind of keeps it fresh because I really love what I do. And I love what I do here. I love my relationship with my audiences here. I go to work, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I always
and it comes through, and it's
they're really loving.
And it's
unique.
unique,
Like that real
but
loving.
it's unique because you're their spokesperson.
Yeah, and it shows you. You don't. Well, you don't have to. I think there's this view that your comedy career has to be a certain thing. It goes, and it's always based around in the city, and then I'll get on TV and do that. And you go, so many communities that want a voice. They want people to reframe how they're thinking, what their lives are. So there was actually, I went, wow, it's like being a village idiot. There was actually, like, when there's a role for someone that lives in a regional area like me to do exactly what I do. Not that the government would fund that, but I fund it. the community funds it because they come to my shows. That's pretty amazing, really. It's
Yeah.
not no one would have thought of that. I have to make it up.
But the interesting thing is that you enjoy every second of your job, whether it's
Oh, I
writing
love
for the
it.
Echo or performing or now going into politics. You enjoy it because and you're completely confident of your own capabilities. As I mean, there are similarities between us because I'm never been accepted by the mainstream except for very early Australiana Billy Birmingham
Yeah.
days. But since for the last 38 years or whatever, I've just done my own fucking thing. And people say, why do you piss people off? And why do you do this? And why do you do? Because intellectually, it's the best game in town. To really push it, to provoke, to
Yeah.
challenge, to unsettle the crowds. I just love my job. I love this fucking job. I love
I
it.
can see how much you're enjoying it. And when you really are, like that night when you're doing it, and when they get, the great thing is when you unsettle them, but they
Yeah.
get it,
Yeah.
and how much you're going, oh, it's almost like the penny drops. And they go, oh, this is satire. Like, we get it now.
But that's right.
Thanks. And then it's really enjoyable.
That's right. But on the other side of the coin is when I'm working in Gilgandra to a bunch of fuckwits who think that I'm just taking the piss and there's nothing there. And what about Billy Birmingham and etc. It's just it's a painful experience.
Billy
But still, over the whole career, like you looking back on the whole career, it's has been massively enjoyable and rewarding.
Oh, it's so much fun. I always feel like my career is, without using a tacky metaphor, I always feel like I'm standing in the wilderness with a machete and, and I'm just slashing a path. There's no path where I'm going. I've just had to make my own fucking path because the other path's full of people. They don't need things to slash. They just kind of go through. But I feel like I feel like I'm on Comedy Survivor and I've been pushed into.
That's the same.
territory.
It's the same issue as people coming. What do you say? Fuck. What do you say? Cocksucker. It's just got nothing to do with anything. It's got absolutely nothing to do with anything. Because if you are forging a path, which are the most interesting entertainers, they're the ones that work in the mainstream and the Will Anderson thing or whatever it is, the boring fucks. They're never going to be the ones that will be remembered, I don't think. The ones that they got the machete in the wilderness, they're the ones that
the machete in the wilderness.
Well, they're the ones that are interesting to me, and they're very few.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting process because there is no, and I kind of hope in doing that because I've taught lots of people, and you go, there's some really interesting voices out there, and I hope by cutting some weird paths, like that, you forge something that other people can come in behind you. Like I've got here where I've taught a lot of my students now. I mean, I had to teach 2,500 people to get to the point where I'd go to them, don't wait for me to give you experience because I'm not going to employ you. You won't be good enough. And I run the occasional open mic room, but honestly, I can't sit through that. It's exhausting to sit through open mic room twice a week. It's painful. But you run your own and you get stuff happening. And there's been some really great groups around here, comics, that have set up their own, they're running open mics, occasionally torturing the crowd with open mics, but they're getting their own experience. They're getting better. And they worked out, they took charge of their own gigs. They didn't just sit there sooking about not getting experience. I think that's when they saw what I did and went, oh, that's not that hard. I can do it. It's really great. I went, oh, look at those guys go now. I don't have to run open mic rooms anymore because they're running about 8 or 9 of them. So it's really cool.
No, it is really cool, and yeah, of course, and it's good. But it's also great to encourage people who you can see have some sort of capability for it. When I see people that don't, I say give it away, give it away, give it away now. But when I see somebody that really has, something, I support them. But I just don't. I don't think it's worth encouraging people who don't have it. Because it's a long fucking road, it takes you 10 years, as you know, 10 to 15 years,
it is.
just to get your own point of view and work out how to express yourself. That's just 10 years to do that, and then getting funny and then being comfortable. And you can be real smart and you can be real funny in your lounge room, but getting up on the stage is a
but
whole
you can't translate.
there's so many
that's
people
the hardest, isn't it? It's that translating that to the difference. People don't understand the difference between being the funny guy at a dinner party and the funny guy on stage. big difference.
No, it's like the kangaroo in the headlights. As soon as you get up there, you freeze. You realise it's not an easy job. That's the Frank Curry thing. He's real smart in the crowd. Yeah, he's yelling out shit. But when he has to, if he actually became a stand-up, not that he's ever funny out in the crowd either, but he thinks he is. So.
It can be quite funny,
Eh?
but he
Well,
is.
maybe you can, yeah.
But it is that thing though, because you also have to be prepared to be average, and you have to be prepared to take it on when you die, and to go, well, what the fuck happened then? How will I do that different next time? What could I do? Like, you've got to have a bit of self-reflection as an artist in what you do to get better at it. Because I remember I would go backstage, because what I can do now, I thought I could do, which is I don't have set lists. I don't really know what I'm going to do. I've got heaps of material. Sometimes I'll improvise from something I've seen or heard, or I'm working on. I sometimes I write one word in my phone just to remind myself to do that, to try that bit, or to work a bit. But I started out writing everything out by hand and memorizing it. And I'd walk on stage and I'd just go blah 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 blah. That was all memorized.
Yeah.
And I'd see other comics step on stage, and I went, how are they doing that? They don't even know what's like, I went, I'll never be able to do that. I remember thinking I can never do it. But the way I worked was, I decided that whenever I got comfortable in how I was performing, I had to take away one of my safety nets. So learning everything off by heart, I had to stop doing that. And I had to stop writing set lists. So then I just had to, and then as you took one thing away, because I just hit, every now and then you'll hit a wall, and then I'll go, okay, this set, I'm gonna do 30%, my gear, and I'm gonna try and do 70% stuff I've never done, and keep hitting those things that scare you and push you out of your comfort zone. You actually get better to the end where I went, now I can walk up to a gig I'm doing for an hour, not know what I'm going to do, or I'll think about it in the car and I'll come up with it. I might do this. And then you go on. It's so enjoyable because you've allowed yourself to grow. Like, you haven't just done the same thing. And I really, it's funny that I really never thought I had the ability to do that. And so now I really enjoy it because it's so liberating to get on stage and just let loose.
It is. And also there's so few jobs that you do in your life where you challenge yourself every single day.
Yeah.
In that way, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, at the beginning, there was a lot of memorizing shit like Australian or whatever it was, and then gradually finding my own voice. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, and a lot of.
And that would have been a big jump too, because there was an expectation with Australiana that was the type of comedy you did, like you were doing clever wordplay and word puns. You know what I mean? Like, there would have been an expectation.
Well, Australiana wasn't anything to do with me, really, But I'm very lucky that I had that. But that was
Birmingham.
Fantastic.
But what I was fantastic.
Really?
But it was not.
Lucky he had you.
Well,
no
that's
one would
right.
have known
But it was not really what I was interested in. I was interested in upsetting them all the time, just pushing them to the boundary where they and over the boundary to the point where they would get angry at me and want to kill me, which is just, that's when things start to get interesting. But no,
you always look like, you see people get angrier and angrier, and it's almost sometimes the angrier they get, the more relaxed you start to look. Like you, like you always look when you go into a. Then you go into a calm crowd, it kind of makes you agitated, and as I've seen it shift as it goes up, where they get agitated, you seem to really relax and go, okay.
No, because what I'm looking for always is unpredictability. That's what I'm looking for. That's the thing where things get so exciting for me. When somebody shouts out or somebody gets riled up about something so petty or whatever it is. It's I yell out, it's a show, it's a fucking show, it's just a fucking show. That's the moment when things, because stand-up comedy is such an art form. You're talking about stand-up poets like John Cooper Clarke or whatever, and those guys were predominant. Were very, very. They were everywhere in the 1980s. That sort of stuff. I mean, stand-up comedy can reach that sort of thing, that level, if you've got all these forces working against you and, you know, within you. That's just makes it so fucking interesting. I love this job. I just wanted to touch, before we finish up now, I just wanted to talk about political correctness and woke and, you know, all the cancel culture stuff and the vilification of people without really, you know, before trial, before, you know, like Louis C.K. or Woody Allen or whatever. What do you think about all that stuff?
I think political correctness is interesting because there's a different view. Like, I don't have any political correctness. I think is a word coined by the alt-right to actually minimize not being a prick.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is, and I would say, even though people would go, Austen Tayshus, completely politically incorrect. I go, oh, no. That's because you're satirizing racism all the time. You're always satirizing that. So somewhere in the middle of that, people misunderstood. Like, I hated starting out. There were comics that I went on with, like, you know, that guy Mouse years ago.
Mouse.
You know, he was like a biker's comic, and he would do this. Audiences laughing at this hideous jokes about bad racial, you know, Asian drivers.
Yeah.
And that shit. And you're just going, are you fucking kidding? And people, and you go, I have to go onto an audience that loves this. I remember watching him one night. There was a comedy store and everyone was loving it. I went on after him. I died. I started heckling him because I couldn't bear listening to that stuff go unchallenged. And then I went, they're going to hate me because they loved him. So I'm glad that's gone, because that's
I am too, because I get bunched in with all those fuckwits too a lot of the time. And
but you're not one of those. That's the thing, is that's not what you do. Like, if someone sat through your show, they know that's not what you're actually doing. You're satirizing a culture that does that. There's a real difference between that. And I think that thing between you've got to be a bit nuanced to understand the difference between, I mean, I do jokes, I guess, that I could be seen as completely politically incorrect, but that's if that term is then used by people that it's like a Christian term, you know, it's like ethnic cleansing. It's like a kind of a.
That's very important, all that. And it's when people say to me, what do you think about political correctness? I mean, it's hard to differentiate between satire of, you know, racism or satire of intolerance or whatever it is. And so I use an Aboriginal voice to talk about racism, you know, all my stuff there about Aboriginals giving us, you know, alcohol and gambling and all this sort of stuff. It's all about, that's the I'm talking about the opposite, you know, but people can often misinterpret that. So I've never been a politically incorrect comic, but I'm not a politically correct comic either, because I love aggression and I love pushing things as much as possible from an intellectual perspective that a lot of audiences don't even understand. I mean, people don't understand what the fuck I'm on about. You know, I get these people sending these notes saying you're a fucking racist, misogynistic, you know, whatever, which is all just rubbish, just absolute rubbish. A lot of comedians saying that to me these days, you know.
Well, I think it's understanding too, line them being, you know, you need to have there's an artistic freedom that you need to have to be able to investigate those ideas that are deeply embedded in Australian culture around, you know, Australians are deeply racist. We are deeply bigoted. You know, and it's almost like, you know, you don't want, if you lose satire, you lose the ability to truly point out where that comes from and where it is, because otherwise you almost can't even talk about, you know, culturally what it is. I think it's always a fine line, and you just know when something's wrong. You know that feeling, and you go, this feels, you know. And I very rarely, and audiences will shut it down anyway. They'll you know, sometimes you go on stage and it's a different thing. Like the other night, you're making jokes, for instance, like rape jokes, not funny most of the time. Yeah. Except occasionally, like the other night, you're having a go at a footballer where you were making fun about, we just pop into town, you know, rape 50 women, and you were making fun about.
They were laughing at it too, though.
But that was a joke about the culture of football.
Absolutely.
And that's normalized. That is not. Like, if you're an idiot, you'd say that's a rape joke. It's not. Yeah. It's a joke about culture, you know, about how normalized that kind of violent culture towards women is within their sport. Yeah. And a completely politically correct, edgy joke that if you don't like it and don't understand it, you'll say, oh, that was politically incorrect, but absolutely not.
But the difference is
So-
too that the footballers got it. You know, the footballers understood the irony that I was on about. You know, they
Yeah,
got it,
because
they got it.
they should understand it because they live in it.
Yeah. But they didn't take it seriously. They came
Yeah.
back and said, "Oh, that was a fucking great. Sure, you just did, mate." It's about
Yeah.
Sam Burgess, who's whatever. I don't think people would think he was politically correct, but he loved my show. You know what I mean?
No, not at all. But often it's people, it's not the person, is it? It's someone else getting up in defense, or getting angry on behalf of someone else. That gets into trouble. I I think that's things as far as like with Louis C.K. I don't know a lot about what happened. I like Louis C.K.
Well, what happened was, let me tell you what happened.
I think he had a huge shameful thing that happened. Yeah, shame.
No, what happened was there were two comedians, two girls in his room with him, and he said, "Would you mind if I take my cock out and masturbate?"
Yeah. I suppose he did ask for consent.
He
say
asked
yes or no.
he asked them for consent, but that's why I don't think firstly I would think, well, so why would you do that? Why would you do that, particularly
It's like a weird thing to ask anyway.
particularly with people in your own game that are going to go straight? Guess what Louis C.K. just did? He just pulled his cock out and masturbated. Why would you do that? Why would you do it?
It's kind of a creepy, it's a really creepy thing to do.
It's a creepy thing to do because it's stupid as well. It's just stupid. I've worked with that guy several times all over the place. He is a strange guy. He used to ask me why I'm so aggressive in London when I was doing those jongleurs shows. Why you do so much aggression? Why you do so much aggression? Whatever. And then he decided to be.
Why are you wanking in front of people?
Well, no, but he's aggressive anyway. He's an aggressive entertainer. But yeah, you go on. Sorry, you don't know. You didn't know what he did, so that's what he did. Yeah.
Well, I knew there was the thing around the masturbation and the kind of, I've sort of forgotten now what kind of, because it all becomes part of the.
Well, they told everybody.
It is a completely stupid thing.
Yeah.
Why would you just don't do that in your workplace? Or,
no, well, hire a couple of people to come
out.
to you. Hire a couple of people to come
exactly to go and do it. That seems obvious.
The same with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, why would he hit on Ashley Judd when he could just hire an $8,000 a day prostitute and do whatever he wants without any problems? I don't get it. It's
I
like
guess sometimes when people are successful, well, they mistake their success for access,
power,
and power and it kind of dehumanizes other people in the way that they see their access to them, I guess. And I guess you just never want to become that. You never want to become a person that views other people in such a poor light that you do those things to them. Like a decent person is understand, have a proper contractual relationship with someone where it's actually equal and fully consensual. Don't ask if you can wank in front of your workmates, because pretty well they're going to say fucking no.
Well, they did. I don't think they did. I think they let him go. I think they let him go ahead anyway. But anyway, so look, it's been great.
Well, even if you did let someone go ahead, anyway.
But look, it's been great chatting, and it's been the what.
You're never going to.
I'm getting a bit of a wind up here now. I'm getting a bit of a wind up, so I'm getting a wind up. But it's been wonderful talking to you. And out of all the comics that I've worked with in Australia, as you know, I prefer working with you, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
Oh, thank you.
But it's because
we will continue to do it.
Well, it's always a lot of fun and a great privilege. So anyway, happy birthday, Mandy, and
thank you.
See ya.
I'm ready to go and take some birthday calls. See ya.
Okay, see ya.